Hey universe. Hey Katie. So I was supposed to go to Harry Potter today, but my whole entire family got the stomach flu and I'm not feeling so great. So here's your video. So last week for spring break, my brother had to go to Seattle to look up some things for a history project. So I told him I would go with him so he wasn't completely alone. So we all just kind of packed up and went to Seattle. First I started out pretty slow. We actually spent like 14 hours driving, and a lot of it was through the rain. It wasn't until we got to about Moses Lake in Washington that it was actually kind of nice out. I also learned on this trip, which I'd kind of already known before, that I have a strange addiction to bridges. Every single time we'd go under a bridge or over a bridge, I would just kind of freak out. But really, Washington was really beautiful, and I really enjoyed driving through it, even though it was a long day, a long drive through lots of rain. There were a lot of pretty spots too. So after we had stopped driving for like 14 hours, we stopped in this place called Clay Illume, which we thought sounded like an elven haven. So if you ever go through Washington, you should probably stay in Clay Illume. And we stayed at the Clay Illume Travelers Inn. It was pretty darn awesome, not gonna lie. The second day was actually the reason why we went to Seattle. It was to do a lot of research for my brother's history project. And what we had to do was go inside the library at the University of Washington and look through a bunch of letters that were sent, like, talking about my brother's project thing. But we spent a lot of time at the University of Washington. It was very beautiful, and that was basically my whole entire experience of Seattle was the University of Washington. We only saw the Space Needle like once when we were driving by. Yeah, it was nice, it was pretty, and I really liked the university, but you know, that's all I really saw that day, well, for a while. And then we started to drive again, so another 4 hours in the car finally brought us to where I wanted to be. So Forks is actually only about 3 hours away from Seattle, so just kidding, one day when we were talking about going, I asked my brother, hey, can we go to Forks? It's only like 3 hours away, why not? And he actually said yes. So I gotta go to Forks, which is where like Twilight was set, and oh my gosh, it was so much fun. On the way there's not really a lot of gas stations, and then there was this big sign that was like, gas in 2 miles, take the next right. So we took it and we ended up in this place that we now call Murder Lake because it was creepy. We went up to this gas station that was like the front of someone's house, and when you like pumped the gas, it made this like horrific, frightening noise. It was scary. I mean, this place just looks like a place you would get murdered in, so that's why it's called Murder Lake. And when you start driving into Forks, you have to actually drive through like a legitimate rainforest, and I always thought rainforests were like vines and like palm trees and stuff, but no, it was like a rainforest because it rains so much there. First thing you see is the big sign that says, Forks welcomes you! Jake got to go with us, and I think he was more excited to go to Forks than I was, and he just about peed his pants when we got there. The second thing you see is the truck. They have her like legitimate truck from the movies just sitting outside like their big welcome building, and I tweeted, if you guys are following, that our Pats and I actually have touched the same thing in real life, and it's true. So yeah, I don't know, it's pretty cool. And Simon Garfunkel, the gnome, you guys know Simon Garfunkel, who went to Italy and has been everywhere with me. He got to sit on the truck, so you know, he and our Pats have touched the exact same thing too, so feel a little special. We stayed in this really nice hotel that had like a balcony and a flat screen TV and stuff, and I was like, we're in the middle of nowhere. It's surrounded by like Indian reservations and a rainforest. I mean, this place is nowhere. And our hotel had a balcony and like 2 giant beds and a flat screen. It was amazing. That night, Jake and I went to the biggest store in Forks, which is actually our view from our balcony, and we went shopping. I spent over $100 in this store. I, you know, funded a child's education. The people in Forks are surprisingly really, really, really nice. I mean, I talked to a couple people while I was in there, and they're just super nice. I'm sure they just love having people come because really in the middle of nowhere, like nowhere. So that concluded our trip to Forks because the road to the house was like blocked off and we had to get going because Jake had to be back to school on Thursday. So we left, but you know, Forks was wonderful. If you're ever in Washington and you're around Seattle, I think you should definitely go to Forks, not just because Twilight was there or whatever, but the people are really nice. It's really pretty out there, and it was really worth it. I'm glad we went. So we left Forks, and it started our longest driving day. We left Forks at 7 in the morning, and we didn't get home until about 1 or something like that. So it was pretty late. It was a long drive. On the way out of Forks, we saw things like the ocean and a bunch of trees, and it was really foggy and like misty, but there's still sun. It was pretty cool. It was nice. It was nice to drive through that. Something else I found when I was driving through there, if you read my book Silver Lining, in the second one they moved to Lincoln City, Oregon, and in the third book they actually go back, and then there's going to be this big war, and I couldn't ever figure out where I was going to like fight this war, and I had found a place, and it's just the coolest thing, because I drove by and all the trees were like cut down and there was like smoky mist stuff. It was really cool. So it really like inspired a whole scene of my whole entire books. Another place that we went through, which is the place I'm going to live someday, you know, mark my words right now, I will be there in, I don't know, as soon as I can be there. When I'm done with school, I'm moving here. This place, get it, this place is called Hump Tulips. Yeah, I know, right? A little ridiculous. But I will live there someday because it is actually named Hump Tulips. So I drove really the rest of the way, so I didn't take any pictures or videos because I drove from Oregon all the way back home pretty much. So, yeah, Seattle and Forks, it was great. It was wonderful. I'm glad that I was able to go, and it was so much fun, and thank you guys for like following me on Facebook and Twitter and stuff, and you know, keeping me not bored on the car ride over there. I'll have another video up next week, and the collab channel is actually going to be started again, so that will be starting in a few weeks. And yeah, I love you guys. Remember who you are and what you stand for.